Hi, students. Let's continue discussing the same topic. Open your book page 295. Let's move to the difference between some and somewhat. You have to know that somewhat, okay, means to some extent. So you have to avoid using some instead of somewhat. And in an informal speaking, you can use some, okay, but you have to know that using some instead of somewhat is non-standard, so it's wrong to use it. But in an informal speaking you can use some. So in this case, this medicine should help your cough. Some here expresses an informal situation, but here somewhat is used in formal situation. Okay, let's move to supposed to or supposed to. You know that it's wrong to use supposed to, so supposed to is wrong, supposed to is correct. And you know that supposed to means an intention or plan. So you have to say we were supposed to, not supposed to meet Wendy at 8 o'clock. Okay, let's move to the difference between then and then. You know, guys, that than is used in comparative forms, and I explained that before. For example, she is younger than you are, she is taller than you, she is more beautiful than your sister. So, in comparative cases, you have to use than. But if you want to use then, you have to use that then is an adverb which means next. I swept the floor, then I emptied the trash. So then here means next. So I never use then instead of then. Okay, let's move to the next page. Okay, let's move to them. Never use them as an adjective. For example, it's one of those fancy show dogs. Okay, for example, never say them instead of those. So those is correct, them is incorrect. For example, if you move to exercise 7 and move to sentence number 7, okay, them, okay, so it's wrong to use you can't use them before the noun, so you have to say those. Okay, mosquitoes can drive a person nearly crazy. Okay, so never use them as an adjective, you have to use those. Let's move back to this here. Okay, that there. Never use here and there after this or that, like this. Let's rent this, not this here. So never use here or there after this or there. So it's wrong here to use here after this. For example, in exercise 7, if you move to sentence number 10, I am tired of crying to cut the grass with this, not this here. So you have to cross out here. Never use this and here in the same sentence. Let's move to try and try to. Never use a try and. So a try and is wrong. You have to use a try to. Okay? Let's move to used to and used to. In this case, it's familiar, okay, to you that you have to use used to. So it's wrong to use used to instead of used to. So you have to say used to take. Okay? Let's move to way or ways. You know that way means distance and ways means like steps or methods. So if you want to use way, okay, referring to distance, you have to use way, not ways. Okay, she lives quite away from here. So away here means distance, so I never use ways instead of way. Okay, let's move to what? Never use what instead of that in a clause or in a sentence. This is the book that. Never say this is the book what. Okay. If you move to exercise 7 and look at sentence number 4, okay, supposed to, you have to say supposed. It's easy here. If you move to sentence number, okay, 3, okay, the space shuttle was exploded. It's wrong to use what in a clause. You have to use that instead of what here. Okay? And if you move to number 6 also, as soon as the rain lets up some. Don't use some instead of somewhat. You have to use somewhat. Somewhat is correct here. So never use some, okay? You have to use somewhat here in this case. Look at number 8. Tanya carried the ball a long ways. Here, you have to use way, because way here refers to distance. So you have to say a long way, not ways. Let's move to when and where. When you want to introduce a definition, okay, if you want to define a word, for example, photosynthesis is. Don't say photosynthesis is when. So I never use when and where to introduce a definition. For example, SRO is when. Never use when to introduce a word. For example, if I want to introduce the word glossary, don't say a glossary is when. You have to say a glossary is or a glossary means. So when you want to define a word, you can use the word means, or you can use is or are to introduce words. And for example, in exercise 7, a solar eclipse is when. Okay, so in this case, don't use as when. You can say occurs or means, or you can use as alone without when. Okay, because if you look here at the definition, a solar eclipse occurs or happens, the moon comes between. So I never use when or where to introduce a definition. Move to where. Don't use where instead of that. I read that, okay? Not where. For example, in exercise 7, exercise 9, I think I read in the paper, not where, that, okay? Let's move to who, which, or that. You know that who refers to people and which refers to things. And you can use that after people or after things. For example, Carlotta is a person. Because Carlotta is a person, you have to say who. The doctor who. My mother who. My teacher who. Okay, and you can say that. Carlotta who. Carlotta that. My sister who. My sister that. Hair medal, you know that medal is a thing, so you have to use which. Hair medal which, or hair medal that. Hair the table which, or the table that. Okay, so which refers to things, who refers to people, and you can use that instead of both.